Welcome back to A Little Bit of Cheese, your bite-sized Wisconsin sports podcast. I'm your host, Cody Depius. That is Sam Douglas. We are back after a eventful championship weekend, we'll call it. The Super Bowl matchup is set. It'll be Kansas City and Philly, what nobody wanted, but we kind of all expected, except for Sam. You had much higher hopes for Washington than what came to fruition there. But I think I have it named as the Villain Bowl because these are the two teams going into it that nobody wanted to see. There is no underdog here, and this is just what happens sometimes. So we'll go over these two games that happened yesterday. We'll start it off because there's a little bit less to talk about with this Washington game, but Philly just looking tough. The entire roster, as we expected, just was better than Washington yesterday. Yeah, I might take a Jaden Daniels over a Jalen Hurts, but that might be the only position group that I think that the Eagles might have been lesser than yesterday.
100% correct. It might be the Villain Bowl coming up, but it's the Villain Bowl because we got the right two teams. It has come down to the two best teams in football this year. It came down to the three best teams. I'll put the Bills right there, and they had their cracks at it. And that's what it was. And then we see how there's levels to this. There was the next team that was not quite there, and they got blown out, and that was Washington. And like I said, going into last week, Washington got the benefit of the doubt when they were playing some of these other teams that weren't going to make them pay for their mistakes that Philadelphia absolutely did. It could have been a close game. Fumble, fumble, fumble. I think it was three possessions in a row, put the ball on the ground, and the Eagles scored off that. First play of the game, first touch of the game, Saquon Barkley takes it to the house.
Yeah.
This is an unforgiving Philadelphia team. They are loaded everywhere, and they've done it the right way. You got to give massive shout out to what Howie Roseman has put together.
Oh, yeah.
This team is so talented, and they've done it through the draft. We talked a little bit about how awesome it is to see these Packers linemen coming through the draft. Past 4 years, these Eagles in the first two rounds, they go out in 2021 to get Landon Dickerson in the second, all pro. They go out and get Jordan Davis and Cam Jurgens in 2022, both studs. After that, they go get Jalen Carter and Nolan Smith. Again, just guys in the trenches to get after the quarterback, protect your quarterback. And then this year they go and get Quinion Mitchell and Cooper DeJean in the first two rounds. They've built this team over the past 5 years the right way. And 7 touchdowns on the ground, 7 rushing touchdowns in the NFC Championship game is absolutely unreal. That's more rushing touchdowns than the Cowboys had all season. So, not to just rip on the Cowboys here because they didn't do much this year, but I think that puts it into perspective how dominant this Philadelphia offensive line is, how good Saquon Barkley is, and hey, the Chiefs aren't walking into their third straight here. They're going to have to fight for it.
And I think this Philadelphia team is a really good contrast to show you where Green Bay has kind of been missing recently. You're going over those early draft picks that Philadelphia has hit on. And don't get me wrong, Green Bay has hit on some draft picks, but they've missed a lot of guys in the early rounds. You're very rarely are you drafting a certified superstar from the third round or later. It's going to come in the first two rounds. So for Green Bay to go out and get the superstar and not just a solid player that can play for you for a 17-game season and start for you, but to get a superstar and a game changer, most of those guys are coming in the first two rounds. So Philadelphia, they've been able to hit. Detroit, they've been able to hit. And that's where Green Bay's kind of been missing on their talent pool recently. They have to hit that first and that second round, and then you start to get those studs. And Roseman has just done a great job. I think that Jaden Daniels on the other side, the losing end, of course, I think he proved that he was supposed to be there. That game yesterday, you can't put the blame on him. I thought he still played a very, very solid game. Like, he had that team in contention going into half when Philly was able to capitalize on a couple of turnovers. They got it to 27-15, I think, at half. That's a doable game where Philly really could have ran away with it and they could have been 27-0. But Daniels was there, ready to compete. We're going to see him playing late in the season, I think, for years to come. So thank you for an exciting rookie season there, Jaden Daniels. We're excited for what he's going to be able to show us all. But Philly, just the better team. And I think you're right when you talk about this overall. You did get the two best teams. And now we can kind of transition here into the AFC side with Kansas City beating Buffalo. There's a lot of conversations between these two games. I tried to look up and see what the overall consensus is on Twitter. I'm seeing some contradictions. And the biggest play, and I think this like absolutely nails my headline prediction from last week. I will say that. I said we're going to get a Super Bowl rematch. It'll be Kansas City and Philly, and the officials will come into question. And I think that's an easy prediction to have because I think after every single week, the officials have come into question. But the big one here was on the fourth down play where Josh Allen maybe got a first down. They brought it to review. But the play before that, Dalton Kincaid dove for the marker. He was also very close to it. But Buffalo in the fourth quarter, turnover on downs, and it was fourth and inches, a bone crushing call there. I'm kind of giving a prediction to what you're going to talk about here, as your name today is not just Sam Douglas, but also future part-time referee. So I'll give the floor to you now, but I don't have an overall take on this call. I actually thought that the officiating was better than I expected for yesterday, at least when it came to the Kansas City game, the one that we really dove into there. But I think you might have some differing takes.
How do we have part-time refs in the NFL? There's so much money in this league, and these guys aren't full-time jobs. They're like lawyers and stuff. These guys are attorneys. These guys are PTs. These guys have other jobs, and they're not, and they're in control of the AFC Championship. And what are we doing here? Why can't the NFL pay guys to be a full-time dedicated official throughout the year and get the best guys on the field when it matters the most? Because that's what it came down to. It came down to that fourth down call. The Bills were up one with the ball, driving really, really well. And that was the difference in the game. Now,
Mm-hmm.
I think he got the first down. The refs had two different spots.
Yes.
Um, so that's just tough to see because I've been singing Josh Allen's praises for quite some time now. Last week, I went on to say he's one of the top 10 most talented quarterbacks I think the league has ever seen. And I stand by that because you watch this game. This was a heavyweight fight. It's what we all wanted to
Mm-hmm.
see. It was Patrick Mahomes versus Josh Allen. Neither one of them wanted to give the ball to the other guys. It came down to 3 points. Both guys had multiple chances to go have a game-winning drive, and it was just beautiful. It's sad to see it come down to calls, stuff like that. And Josh Allen did his part. Even at the end, he gave Dalton Kincaid a shot to make that catch, and that's why this game the quarterbacks are a wash. I'm saying Josh Allen had just as good of a game as Patrick Mahomes. The difference is organizational. The difference is coaching. The
Mm-hmm.
difference is preparation. The difference is those single off guys that made their plays. Kincaid didn't have a ton of opportunities, but he didn't execute when he did. Samaje Perine had his one opportunity, crushed it. Juju Smith-Schuster had his one opportunity, crushed it. Justin Watson had his one opportunity. And these guys on the Chiefs, they take their moments and they execute. And that's what we've been talking about all year long. They blitzed a cornerback once all game yesterday. And it was on that fourth down when they needed it most. And McDuffie
Yep.
came off the edge and made Josh Allen throw one of the better balls that we've ever seen. Like, how are you going to give your player a position to make that catch? So, so it was awesome. Great game. Andy Reid, 3 wins away from Bill Belichick now,
Yeah.
all-time postseason, and I think he's knocking on the door of becoming the GOAT. He's got to be on the Mount Rushmore. It was an incredible game, but you would have loved to see Josh Allen get that first down. You would have loved to see them break through. Maybe the Chiefs go win this game. I'm bummed about it, but we got the two best teams.
Yeah, I was also bummed about it. When we watched the replay, I was working at Who's on Third, and of course, everybody at the bar is cheering for Buffalo. Like, actually, it would almost seem like a Green Bay kind of game, the way that everybody cheered over like a minor, solid Buffalo play. So it was a fun atmosphere in that sense. Like, it's always fun to actually, like, truly root for other teams. Like, you can always be pulling for some other guys, but like, to have the whole bar, even here in the state of Wisconsin, going crazy, that's a different experience. Like everyone was rooting for Josh Allen, the Bills, to take down the Chiefs. Is that love for the Bills, or is that more hate for the Chiefs and what's all going on over there and just the lack of parity that we've seen? I don't know. It might be more of the latter, but a really fun atmosphere. And I think it was a general consensus with everybody sitting down that that was a first down and that it was really funky that the one guy who could see the ball had the spot that would have gave him the first down from the one side of the field, but the one guy with his back turned who said that it was short, it was his call that was taken. I thought that that was really funky. I mean, when you take it to replay, it is so close that that's a hard one to overturn. If they would have gave him the first down and they took it to replay, I bet they keep the first down. I think that's how it was. It's hard to say it definitively. I thought it was a first down. I mean, Twitter's consensus, you hate the Chiefs or you think that it was a first and you think it was a first down or the opposite. And all the Chiefs fans are complaining that everyone thought that it was a first down. I don't know. There's a lot of discourse on social media about that, but when it comes down to one play, you can complain about one play, but Allen and the Bills did get their opportunity at the end of the game. You have 3.5 minutes left. You have your 3 timeouts. They had it there on a silver platter for them. Buffalo had that chance that they wished that they had a couple of years ago when it went into overtime, and they didn't get that opportunity with the ball in their hands with a couple minutes left and all their timeouts. They did this game. Kansas City executed on defense. Yes, Allen gave his guy an opportunity, but Kansas City just it's Spagnuolo and the talent that they have there. Like Kansas City is not winning all of these games because of Patrick Mahomes or even just Andy Reid. It is the combination of everybody in that organization involved. That defense, when it gets colder, they get better. The same with Reid. The same with Mahomes. The same with all these guys. DeAndre Hopkins making plays out there. You have Xavier Worthy making plays. You said Watson. Like this whole team, it is an organizational thing. It is a mindset thing. And we are watching a true dynasty right before us. Yes, it is annoying, but this is the stuff that we're going to be reading in history books from now on, and we're going to look back and say we hated it when it happened, but in hindsight, boy, it was just pure greatness. And that is what we are continuing to watch. It is hard to root against them. Even in this Super Bowl game where it looks like Philly is the clear-cut favorite because of how much talent they have and how much Saquon Barkley has been dominating anybody who tries to stop him, it's so hard to pick against Kansas City. It doesn't matter. They just show up when they're supposed to. So I think this is going to be a really good Super Bowl as much as it is the Villain Bowl, and everyone says that they're going to hate to watch it. I think it's going to be a really fun game. I'm excited for it. I am. No, it's like as much as I was saying we don't want this, like we are going to see some good football. I truly do. The whole part-time official thing, I actually never even like thought of that consciously. Like that these guys have other jobs too. I actually thought it was a full-time position and they got paid like, I don't know, $70,000 a year. That's not the case. They go do other
these guys
stuff too.
they're part-time guys.
That's wild. Oh man. I mean, it is harder to find a superstar player than it is to find a ref who's going to be terrible anyway, I guess, because no matter who they can find, there's always a bone to pick with anybody. But yeah, maybe that's something that they need to look into. I would love for the NFL to just come out and say, yeah, we've had a problem. Like in the offseason, like there's a problem and we're doing something to fix it. Like that would help everybody, I think, because I do hate the continual narrative that we talk about the officiating. I know I'm just as much of a perpetrator as anybody is. I complain all the time. I just hate it. You know, and that's the difference. Like I was saying, the difference between football and other sports. Like in football, officiating can just get really funky, where it's just like the one play where it's like, kind of could have gone one way, could have gone the other way. We don't know, but the game's going to end up that way just because. But regardless, whatever the calls are, you got the 2 best teams in the Super Bowl, and I think that's all we can ask for.
I saw Adam Schefter put out a stat trying to defend himself on his Mahomes tweet. During their 8-game playoff win streak that the Chiefs are currently on, if you combine unnecessary roughness calls and roughing the passer calls, the Chiefs have gotten 1 of those and their opponents 10 of them. So whether that's mindfulness in the moment and good coaching, which it sounds like those unnecessary roughness and roughing the passer, that is, a little bit of mind over matter thing. But when the numbers are stacked up like that, people are going to talk, man. That's just how it's going to be. The numbers are supporting the conversation. It's a gut feeling that after a while, the numbers are starting to support it.
And I think the one that came out after last year's Super Bowl is that there's not been a single offensive holding call in Kansas City in these Super Bowl runs. Like that. Yeah. You'd think that one comes out of the back pocket, but
Yeah.
yes, it's come to conversation. But
Which
regardless,
we want, which we want. We don't want, we just got done saying we want the players to play the game. We don't want the
yes,
calls. We don't,
right.
but we want it to go both ways.
Yeah, 100%. But regardless, we're watching greatness, and I think that's what we have to talk about and what we have to appreciate. So we'll get ready for the Villain Bowl coming up in a couple of weeks. Staying in the NFL, but going to Green Bay, the Packers have extended Rich Bisaccia through 2026. He serves as the special teams coordinator and the assistant head coach. Apparently, retirement was on the table for him, but he decided to re-sign with the team through 2026. Both you and I have been negative towards Rich Bisaccia due to the special teams blunders, the clock blunders, because he is not just a special teams coach. He is also the assistant head coach. How much does this move affect your emotions at all? Like, do you feel good about it? Do you feel bad about it? You indifferent?
I'm okay with it. I would have loved to see better coaching and better execution out of Bisaccia throughout the year. Special teams did not live up to expectations. We're a young team, and I think one of the worst things that a young team can have is a lot of turnover in the coaching staff. So if he knows the guys, if they like him, he's good in the locker room.
Mm-hmm.
Let's have a little consistency. He is the assistant head coach, and that matters. He's not the offensive coordinator. He's not the GM. He's not the head coach. I mean, there is a little bit of levels to this. If we're re-signing Bisaccia because we trust that he's good in the locker room, I'm gonna take the Packers' word for it. So
Yeah.
I'm not super heartbroken about it. On the special teams front, Keyshawn Nixon wants to be cornerback one. He doesn't want to return kicks anymore. My take on that, Cody, if you put lipstick on a pig, I
I think
don't
it's
know.
so big.
Nixon, I think he sees the job is open, and I think that's what he sees.
Yeah,
So good for him for shooting his shot. That we do have
right.
the cornerback room. That somebody is going to have to go take that job. It ain't you, buddy. I hope.
And yes, I like to hear that he's going to work hard to be the best cornerback on this team. But if Keyshawn
Yeah.
Nixon is the best cornerback on any team in the NFL, I'm not looking forward to seeing their passing ranking at the end of the year, is the way I'll say that. And don't say that in a press conference. It's not your decision to make. It doesn't matter what you want.
Yeah.
It matters where the coach puts you. And this is at any level of football. I thought that was an extremely immature. Like, I'm not going to razz the guy too bad because I thought Keyshawn, for what we expected, had a solid year and whatnot. And not everybody is perfect when it comes to press conferences. But keep that stuff out of your mouth, man. That doesn't help you in any sense because it doesn't matter what you want. That's the selfishness. That's the looking for the money, the looking for the fame. That's not what this game's about. This game takes an entire team. You watched it over the course of championship weekend. Everybody has to be on the same page. There can't be disparity in that. You can't have a differing idea from what your head coach does. Otherwise, there's going to be turmoil and you're not going to succeed. So we'll see what happens with that. I would put a pretty penny on the fact that Keyshawn Nixon is probably still going to be returning kicks. Well, I didn't think he had that great of a year, but Green Bay is going to put some emphasis on finding some more corners. They have to. They have no other option. There's not even enough bodies, I think, that are going to be there next year. Still no word on what's going to happen with Jair Alexander, but I would also put a pretty penny on the fact he's not going to be in green and gold. But and we can still look at Rich Bisaccia. You have to understand when he came into Green Bay, he was coming off of an interim head coach position that he had with Vegas. He was actually quite successful, kind of turned a locker room around. A lot of people thought he was going to be in contention for some head coaching jobs around the league, but he came to Green Bay, and he loves it there, and I think Green Bay loves to have him there. So if that's the case, yes, if there's positivity surrounding that, like we just talked about it with Nixon. It's the positive vibes. It's how well do you all work together? And the Packers think they work well together with Rich Bisaccia. So I guess we can feel okay about it. I think you had the right answer. And Luke Getsy, who was hired by Green Bay, we talked about it last week, his new position, it is not quarterback coach. He is named the, quote, senior offensive assistant. So he's going to be LaFleur's buddy and Stanovich's buddy. And my kind of thought process on this, because it has been reported around the league that Adam Stanovich, the current Green Bay offensive coordinator, has been applying for, well, not applying, but being interviewed for other offensive coordinator jobs. So I think Getsy is there in Green Bay just in case Stenovich takes another OC jobs. And we talked about it last week. I think that's a positive move. And honestly, even the offensive coordinator isn't going to do all that much for Green Bay because Matt LaFleur is the mastermind of that offense. He's going to make all the decisions. It's just these other guys are there to assist him and to be other eyes on the field. So I don't think there's anything wrong with that. Green Bay is still searching for a quarterback coach and a defensive line coach, and both of those I think will be very important going forward as there's still a lot of development to be had for Jordan Love, and the defensive line didn't know what a pass rush was last year. We'll switch gears here. The Milwaukee Bucks, a tough loss against the Los Angeles Clippers last Saturday, 127-17 the final score. James Harden looked like he was 26 once again. I say it's a tough loss. How are you taking this one, Sam?
We were on a 5-game win streak. We were playing really good basketball. It was one of their first times playing in that new Intuit Dome, which looks awesome.
Yeah.
The place looks sweet, and I think Palmer did a really good job with that. This is a Bobby indictment game, man. It really is. It's the collection of our centers because we held them. We know that we've never been the best at guarding guards. That's not what this team is built to do. The team is built to let your guards get your mid ranges and then, stifle them in that transition 3-point game. And the Bucks did that. This is a game they held the Clippers to 32% from three. And they still put up 127 on us. If you're going to hold an NBA team to under 35%, under 33% from three, and still get 127 scored on you, we put up better field goal percentage and better 3-point percentage than them, but they put up almost 20 more shots than us during this game. That's offensive rebounding. That's getting on the glass. That's forcing turnovers. If you're going to put up 20 more shots than somebody in a game, you're going to win. This is an indictment on Bobby, our secondary big man, not being a big man. He thinks he's a scorer. He thinks he's a bucket. That's where this team needs to improve. And it's one of the few holes on this team. We are playing good basketball. I haven't worried about the Bucks at all this season. I fully trust this team, this process. We have the right guys in the right places. I want to see the growth. I don't want to trade Khris Middleton. But if we can get a better backup center, and life is pretty good when you're fighting for a better rebounding backup center. Life is pretty good. But again, I think that's what showed in this loss to the Clippers because we had a better offense. We were more efficient. 20 more shots is 20 more shots. You're not going to win that game.
And Bobby is not alone in that problem. You also have to take Brook Lopez into consideration there. He hasn't helped on that front as much as he really needs to at this point. And it's expected. He's old. He's not athletic anymore. His offensive capabilities are becoming more and more limited. And he's also becoming a liability on defense, actually. So I'm actually quite negative on Brook Lopez if he can't take it from those comments. But yes, the offensive rebounding was horrendous. And the Bucks looked solid. I mean, Giannis was still as dominant as ever. Like every time that I'm watching him, it's just he finds so many easy ways to get to the bucket and finishes so well. So in that sense, the Bucks are going to be okay just because they have that kind of a superstar. But I did like your comment on Khris Middleton. I'm seeing a lot, namely from depressed Bucks fan on Instagram. I know he's very, very upset about the trade rumors for Khris Middleton. But do you think that there is a realistic package possibility that Milwaukee can send him off?
I'm going to double down on what I said Friday. The only one that I want to see happen is Zach LaVine. And again, I could be convinced on that. With the package would have to be right, but he's the only one who I think I could see making us instantly better right now. Takes the role that Khris does and improves it a little bit. He's a little bit younger. I don't want to see us force something. I think John Horst has been he's been active. He's been aggressive at every single trade deadline. We're just about a week and a half away from it right now. So I do expect to see something happen. And we just don't have many pieces to trade. So if Horst is going to be trade happy, and we only really have Khris, Pat, Bobby, we don't have many picks to trade. That's what makes me a little nervous going into this. But I hope Zach LaVine comes through. I don't think it's out of the question. I would put it at about 50-50, whether we're packaging Khris and Bobby to get Zach LaVine. But again, we would need another big man because again, just like the Packers
Yeah.
defensive backs, cornerback room, there's no bodies. That's
Yep.
why, like I said on Friday, the draft was disappointing because you go take some 19-year-old kid flyers when you only have two big bodies on your team. So if we're packaging something, like I've said all year, it would have to be the right thing because we are on the precipice of being a championship team. And if you start messing with it too much, it gets dangerous, Cody.
I agree. I think so. I think you kind of just have to look internally and just hope that your guys can play better. And you talked about the lack of capital. Like if you're trading a Khris and a Bobby in a package and you're getting rid of one of the picks that doesn't really exist anymore in the near future for Milwaukee, then I think you can end up in trouble for your future. So I think they're good where they're at, and guys just have to play a little bit better. I don't know if it's coaching. I don't know exactly, but we're saying this after the Bucks are just coming off a 5-game win streak and they had an NBA Cup title. Like this team can do it. This roster really can. So I don't think you need to go and change something up. I think it would be nice to see some more boards on the offensive front and to have another big guy that looks athletic and stays aggressive throughout the course of the game. But you can't be that wishful for everything.
I'll tell you this. I'll tell you this is going to be my final note on the Bucks. We brought in Jimmy Haslam 2 years ago so that we have a lot more money behind us. This is the guy that the Bucks organization brought in for his checkbook and his checkbook only. And so I think that the front office is probably seeing Jimmy Haslam as an asset through this process. So I don't think it's out of the question that the Bucks break all the way through the second apron because they got the guy who can write the check for it.
Yeah, that's true as well. So, I mean, continue to stay hopeful. And I mean, as long as Giannis is there, like whatever teams around, that team's going to be in the playoffs and you have an opportunity to win at all times. And of course, as we know with any sport, money helps. Moving on, the Wisconsin Badgers really taking it to Nebraska. 83-55. Wisconsin now ranks 17th in the nation. News coming out today. 27 points for Tanjay, 14 for Blackwell. Team looked really solid in the Big Ten matchup.
Love to see it. Hey, any Big Ten matchup is gonna be big time. He was at home and absolutely smoked them in our house. Nothing else you can ask for from the Badgers, except a little bit more from Tanjay. I don't know. I'm gonna put this out there. He had 27 and 5, but he had 27, 5, 0, 0, and 0. No assists, no steals, no blocks, nothing. This guy is a bucket who's going to grab you a couple boards because he's just there a couple times a game. I think he's only averaging 1.9 assists per game. That number's, the Badgers are playing good. They're playing good team ball. As a team, they're only averaging 15.1 assists per game. So you hope that number goes up. It feels really low for how much they've been scoring this year.
Right.
And I think that's going to be the breakthrough where we start seeing the Badgers, wow, they're winning some games, to wow, this is a dominant team. And I think Tanjay can lead by example. If he's their number one scorer and he does start to move the ball a little bit, again, no qualms from an 83-55 dominant victory over Nebraska. But
I
if I
think
can pick something out, is turn that 27-5 into 27-5 something, something, and something.
27-5, even 3. 3, 4,
Three.
just something. Just something, not nothing, nothing, nothing. Yeah, I agree. I mean, this is a high octane offense for Wisconsin that we're not used to, which comes to a big surprise, actually, that they're not moving the ball as much for a team that's scoring 40 points in the first half and getting 80-point totals like this. They've been running on a high octane offense, and the big problem in their losses really has been the defense down the stretch. So, I mean, moving the ball, if you can make an 80-point team a 90-point team, I guess, in college basketball. But I think the defense is going to be the key when it comes to this team winning games. And the ball movement will come if need be. But if you're knocking down your shots, you're going to keep shooting. Like if you're feeling it. And when Tanjay gets in these games, these moods where he's hitting 27 and making it look easy, he probably doesn't want to give the ball to anybody else because he just keeps hitting net every time. So I'm okay with it. But yeah, they can do some more Hoosier ball in practice. Maybe they can work on that. But the Brewers, we'll move into them. They have announced that they will induct John Axford into the Wall of Fame. This is a lot of people's one of their favorite closers in Brewers history. He had that great mustache. He was on that 2011 team. Actually had the most saves in Major League Baseball that year. And then
Wow.
ended up getting hurt. He actually pitched rough in the end of his first time in Milwaukee. Went some other places, didn't pitch well, was out of baseball for a little bit, then got back into it, came and pitched 1/3 of an inning for the Milwaukee Brewers once again, got shelled, blew out his elbow again. But a two-time Milwaukee Brewer, John Axford, going into the Wall of Fame.
I think that's an awesome honor. He's somebody that everybody remembers because he had long enough of a stint with the Brewers. When we do get these solid players, it feels like they have just like a 2 3 year stretch where they're dominant. And Axford was the guy for a little bit. He was an icon. He was the guy. He's who you wanted to see coming out of the pen, and it was exciting for the Brewers. Good for him making the Wall of Honor. He's one of those names when you're looking at the wall that some people are gonna tap and be like, "That's my guy. He was one of my favorite players that I got a chance to watch." And everybody's gonna know Yama, everybody's gonna know Bronny, but having John Axford up on that wall with those guys, that's awesome.
Hey, we all remember the Axeman t-shirt, like the jersey shirt, but it said Axeman on the back instead of Axford. Like he had that whole thing going on, and I'll never forget him. He was the best closer in baseball for his season. So congratulations to John Axford. Going to the cheese grater, 3 questions. Sam and I rattle them off back and forth. I'll kick it off here. Question number 1. What is your best case scenario for the Super Bowl?
Best case scenario, Saquon has a day. I've loved what he's done to the running back position, and the Chiefs go win it. I think that's great. That's greatness. You talked about it. I think we're okay being present in this moment. That's my best case scenario. I hope Saquon has a day. I hope Nick Sirianni yells at some fans. I hope
Yeah.
it's a good enough game, and I hope Mahomes lights it up for 400 and he's throwing to 28 different guys and running the ball because running quarterbacks matter. And that's my best case scenario
All
for the
right.
game.
I like it.
I think the top four quarterbacks in the NFL are set. I don't think there's any argument about that. It's Mahomes, Josh Allen, Lamar, and Joe Burrow. Is Jaden Daniels number five?
At this point, the way that he played, the success that he had this year, and the amount of confidence that everybody around him seems to have, I think the answer is yes. This guy has kind of revolutionized what is going to be expected of a rookie quarterback. I don't know. I see a lot of videos where people are talking about Daniel's routine where he uses the VR headset every morning. Like he has his morning coffee and he's got the VR headset on because you get that many more reps and it literally makes your brain work faster in game situations. We saw that at the forefront this year. We saw him as a rookie look like a seasoned veteran who has been doing it for 8 years. Yes, I trust Jane Daniels as the fifth best quarterback in the NFL. I think that was proven the way he played in the playoffs. That loss yesterday, I'm not putting it all on. There were a lot of guys around him who didn't do their job. They didn't hold on to the football, and I'm not going to put that on Daniels. And I think he's here. I think he's here to stay. I wouldn't have said that at week 18, but here we are now, an NFC Championship game appearance in his first year as a starter. Well, first year, period. Congrats to him. Yeah, I think he's number 5. I agree with your list there.
Love
Uh,
it.
where is Andy Reid and Mahomes all time right now, if like without the game being played, the Super Bowl game?
As a duo, the coach quarterback duo,
You can do separately, I'll say.
Andy Reid is definitively on the Mount Rushmore.
So you're
I
saying
don't
top
think that
four.
top four. I'm giving Andy
Okay.
Reid top four right now. I don't. I think being the all-time leader in wins for two franchises is absolutely wild,
Yep.
and impressive. And these aren't franchises. This isn't the Jaguars and the Titans that we're talking about. The Eagles and Chiefs been around for a while.
Yeah.
So I think he's in the top four. And Mahomes, man, he's in the top two. What do you do about that, man? So Brady's the GOAT, and I'm not gonna I'll give you a hint. We're gonna take maybe an extra minute on this one because this is my exact question for you. Is Andy Reid on the precipice of being the GOAT? I don't think he is the GOAT yet. I don't think Mahomes is the GOAT. I don't think even if they win the Super Bowl, they're peaking very, very high right now. New England dominated for 20 years. You just can't do that in 5 or 6 years. There's nothing you can do. What's your stance on Andy Reid and the GOAT situation?
Uh, I think you said it almost perfectly. Belichick had two separate dynasties. Right now, the Chiefs are in the middle of one dynasty, but they had two dynasties over the course of 20 years. And Belichick, those weren't his only six Super Bowls either, as he was the defensive coordinator when the Giants won, I think, two in the 90s. He has 8 Super Bowl rings. So I think Belichick still has that. And I'll still always have a soft spot with Vince Lombardi. I mean, they
Yeah,
had, when you look at dynasties and 5 championships in 7 years, that's pretty hard to beat. So I'm actually going to put Lombardi over Andy Reid yet too, where
sure.
I stand with it. But yeah, I think Belichick, Lombardi, and then Andy Reid. And I'd love to hear any other takes that anybody else has too. I think that's always a fun conversation. But this is more of a fun cheese grater question for you, Sam. So you can use the entire NFL without a quarterback, make your best 3-man dodgeball team for the Pro Bowl games next week.
No quarterback. I get a 3-man. Well, good. I don't want Patrick Mahomes after watching him try to spike a ball, anyways. Look, I want some intimidation. Give me TJ Watt, give me Miles Garrett, give me Max Crosby. I don't know what's going on, but we're going down fighting.
I'm picking Miles Garrett, I think, for anything, really.
Yeah.
Like anything remotely athletic. Have you seen Miles Garrett like 360 dunk a basketball? Like it's kind of scary. Like I think about it before I go to bed sometimes and it keeps me up. Like it's that impressive.
Guy's a freak. A 300-pound chunk of muscle doing 360s like that. Um, NFC North. A little bit of NFC North action here. Bears got their guy, Ben Johnson. Nervous?
The way his press conference went, he had a really awkward joke. I actually don't think we talked about it on a little bit
Mhm.
of cheese yet, but his punchline essentially was that he enjoyed beating Matt LaFleur twice a year, and nobody in the room laughed. But you saw Johnson kind of smile and like want to laugh, but nobody else did with him. If you haven't seen the video, I'd be kind of surprised because you're listening to Sam and I talk about sports right now, so you've probably seen that video. But no, I'm really not concerned. It's the Bears. Like until you see it, it's hard to believe it because we've gone through this cycle multiple times with Chicago. And Ben Johnson absolutely could be the guy. We saw how innovative he was with that Detroit offense. Being a head coach is much different. I'm not that concerned yet. I have to see them go out and succeed. I think I'm more concerned about what I saw, even though Caleb Williams didn't have that great of a rookie season. I'm more concerned about how he's going to continue to develop because I think he's going to get better and better. I'm more concerned about Williams than I am with Johnson and the Bears as a whole, is the way I'll put it. I think the Detroit Lions are still your kings of the North next year, where it stands right now. Minnesota, who knows what happens with J.J. McCarthy and the Sam Darnold situation. But we'll see who Green Bay picks up in free agency and the trades as well. I think it's going to be a really fun division. I think they could break their record next year for most wins in a division. Once again, I think they're here to stay. That'll do it for us on this Monday. We'll be back on Friday to go over all the fun Wisconsin stuff going on this week. I'm Cody Depius. That is Sam Douglas. We thank you for being here once again. We'll be back on Friday with another edition of A Little Bit of Cheese, your bite-sized Wisconsin sports podcast.